welcome to a value conversation, spoken word. Find somebody who knows somebody, tell somebody what you got going on here. If you like it, let us know. Share it if you do. Subscribe. This is what you're looking for. All right, so this is going to be a little panel deal. So if you guys are able to see, let me make sure you can. I've got some guests on with me. So first off, I've got my partner of a long time here, Dwight. Dwight, go ahead and give a shout out to everybody if you could, man.
Hey everybody, coming back in. I've joined a couple times, but I had some technical difficulties, so it's good to join you guys again. Dwight Simmons, longtime friend of John Henry. We go back 20 plus years, military days. He's seen me slip and fall in front of thousands of folks, get up and act like nothing happened. So I'm here to help this guy out and talk about a few things.
Always appreciate that. Appreciate that. And of course, everybody else had Fatty up there. You know how he and I do.
How you doing, friends? I'm here to learn. I'm just here to learn. So, without, I hope you had a great week, and let's have a little bit of fun. Let's have a little bit of fun.
Exactly.
Thank you for having me, John.
Appreciate it. All right, folks. So the title of today's show is South Has Risen Again. So hopefully everybody could see that. Guys, just a second here. You guys see the screen?
Absolutely. Very provocative.
Now, believe it or not, the way that I had it set up first, initially, it was more basic than this. Was as Fatty and I was talking about. I just wanted to get the chip in the water for them, but just make sure that it was something basic to start out with. But if you're looking at what you see on the screen, Fatty made that GPT.
John, you don't tell the secrets. You don't tell the secrets.
So
yeah, he's giving away trade secrets, man.
Say book a session.
Sessions, folks. Sessions, folks. So for the most part, how he does it is good. As you can see here, the idea was to get something that shows the opinion of what we're working with. So for anyone who's not been familiar, hadn't seen the video, the way that it works out here is that about 40 years ago, a Russian defector by the name of Yuri Bezmenov said that America targets that Russia was looking at trying to subvert. And the way they did that was through, as they called it, psychological war or active measures. Now, most people think that when it came to espionage back in the 80s, that the Soviet Union relied on a lot of direct espionage, spies, shooting at spies back. But with Bezmenov, actually, most of their time was spent trying to change the ideology of the country that they were targeting through against psychological war. So as a result, he said there are four stages of psychological warfare that they go through. First stage, demoralization. And through demoralization, what that means is that they try to take away the standard of truth for that country, which means that no matter what is said, no one will believe what is on. You could show them a picture of somebody getting shot, and they will refuse. No, that's not really happening. You take them to a concentration camp, they would not accept that as truth either. So the idea is to take away truth to where no one believes it. Second stage was destabilization. Destabilization was taken at least 15 to Bezmenov change the ideals, and the virtues of the next generation. So we're talking K through 12, then probably up to maybe the first year of college, we'll say grad school. Third stage is crisis. And inside of crisis means that something that the country would go into turmoil for a standard amount of time could range from 2 weeks to nonetheless injecting turmoil into society. And the fourth stage was normalization, meaning that if the first three stages were taken care of, then there was no things being taken as normal under any. not be considered. So that's where we're going to pick up the show. That standpoint. That's where I want to get an understanding of what the basis is. If anyone who gone through American knows at the end of the Civil War, the South did not take the loss. Matter of fact, they came up with a narrative that was called the lost cause narrative. What this stated is that the South was actually the victim of the North as far as aggression. Instead of saying that slavery was the main reason that the war was fought, the South said it was states' rights. So every Confederate general, soldier, they're viewed and it's been romanticized. And what's going to be for the Russians looking at trying to use version on Americans, it all started with the end of the Civil War. That's the point that we're going to roll through. Before we get started, guys, you guys have a statement for that. That's a lot to unpack. But Dwight, you got anything to add to?
And by the way, before Dwight goes, we can see your screen, but on the stream we can. Like on what the public is seeing is only we three in boxes, kind of. Like you right, you're not. Is that supposed to be like this, John? Or there's supposed to be image?
Yeah, that's what's supposed to be right now. I just turned the show.
Okay. Sorry, Dwight. Go ahead.
Oh no,
okay.
Got the phone on. That helps.
You ready for me?
Yeah, go ahead.
And now we disappeared from the screen. The image is showing like either you're showing us or you're showing the image. You're not showing both.
Yeah, the image should be up. So you should also see. Let me go ahead and make this change real.
Yeah, right now I just see you. I just see you, gentlemen.
All right, so that's the screen share. So the image should. You guys see the image now?
On my end, I see it. I'm not
So
sure.
can you look at this? So this is what happened. So we
Okay,
go
that's
and
what I wanted.
So we don't show
though. You're saying the image is up, but not us.
When you put the image, we disappear. When you put us, the image disappears. That's how you want it? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Just make sure here. I just want to see if you guys can see. We go ahead and take that down, but the crowd should see as well. So we'll go ahead and take that down also.
Okay.
So what just in case you guys don't know what I'm doing, over to anything such as a tab that I want the audience to see, I'll go ahead and go over to where they'll be able to see the screen and they'll be able to see any of the tabs. But also, same thing, you guys need to see tabs. I'll go ahead and share it on your side also so you can see it well. But I'll give you some warning about that. My bad.
Okay.
All right. So go ahead, Dwight.
Yeah, you put a lot of words behind a very simple theory of just domination. That's all. The North really, the North and South are really one, just different in terms of what they basically produced, and actually what they definitely agreed upon the same thing. And the thing that they agreed upon was that this is a white nation. That's the one thing that they agreed upon. The differences between the North and the South was what they produced. The North was not into agriculture like the South is. So they had different means of production. So that's where the disagreement was. So when the North decided to go the route they went against the South, states' rights, et cetera, it was really about saving the Union, the whole Union. The South was the one that really kind of put the America on the map in terms of the money, exports, et cetera. So again, they're one and the same, but the difference is that the North really wanted to save the Union. They did not want the South to kind of go their own way and become a separate country, a separate nation, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the difference that they had. But definitely after the Civil War, that's when all the changes really took place in terms of bringing the South back into the place where they were able to romanticize, like you said, the rebel country and all that other stuff that we see. So, good synopsis. The way you put it, normalization, demoralization, stabilization, all these different things. Very, very flossy words for what I just described.
Hey, Fatty, you got something to throw also, man?
No, I just like to focus more on the Russia propaganda and all that. Like we kind of saw, we are not seeing this much on this term, but on the first term, like the fake news type of label where everything you don't like, you just slap a fake news and we can just move along because there's like you said, it's propaganda. You don't have to actually behave well. You just have to control the information that the public access. So even if we are doing terrible things, but between the pipeline between what we did and the information that comes out, there's a machine that cleans, rebrands, puts the ad on, puts the make America great again, or puts the donkey. By the time you get the information, you are going to see what people want you to see. So um, it's 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 just an interesting concept because you can even discredit reality, like John said. You can literally see somebody shoot somebody like you used to say that in front of Times Square and nobody would say nothing. Now we actually got that. There was an exaggeration that would say, but at this point you actually can believe that some people they show somebody in front of Times Square with witness. Oh, there's fake news. There's AI. There's a agent that looks just like such and such and such. And it's kind of unfortunate. That's kind of unfortunate. And Carl says that echo. Mm. Is it me? I don't know. Let me see.
Sorry, I don't have an answer to that.
It's not you echo. It's the echo. Let me try to put my headphones quick and see if it disappears.
Right.
Oh, Ed, while Fatty's doing that, he mentioned the machine cleaning. That's a good way of saying it. I like the way that was framed because that July 6th thing, the reframing of that was awesome. That was awesome reframing and cleaning. Patriots were out there. Going for their rights. That's what we heard, right? So the cleaning and reframing of that that's an awesome thing. I've never seen anything like that though. So.
Now, for the most part, getting on to what you guys are saying, because this really sets everything up. Now, recall that I talked about normalization. Anybody hearing the echo right now?
No,
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, in the chat,
No,
Carl says an echo for everybody.
Oh, I'm going to mute myself. You guys can talk and see if it's from my side.
All right.
Yeah, I'll mute while you guys are talking as well.
All right. So, as of right now, as I was saying, the whole deal that you have now, as Fatty was talking about, biggest problem that we have is misinformation. Because of that misinformation, and you're not able to get anyone to believe anything, that would be the part that Russia was talking about. Whereas now they've got it set up to whereas no one can believe anything said. However, as I'm going to say right here, I believe this information campaign started long before Russia. Thanks, Carl. Good. Go ahead and let us know if the echo keeps up. Good looking out, man. Salute. So if we are still dealing with information, it may have started 100 years ago. Hence why I'm saying that we are looking at what I would call Confederate narrative, Confederate line item, because we look at how, once again, the rights of blacks are being targeted. We're talking about the Smithsonian, where there's supposedly an African arts or the African exhibit over there. Talking about DEI, nothing to do with blacks directly per se, but it is presumed to be that. Seeing people who are being erased from history, such as when they tried to take Jackie Robinson out, but they added it. I think they're taking Jackie Robinson back out again, but the website, when his information was removed, said DEI or something. Now we're starting to look at normalization here. Let's think about this and we'll go ahead and get started. Now that we're at the part of normalization, like Bezmenov was saying, think of this. We're refuting shared values. So, example, grab them by the. We all know about 40 or 50 said something like that in politics. You were done right there because that was smirch that the nation did not tolerate. Right now, we're looking now at the refuting of facts. Kamala Harris is not a black woman. There's another, whereas again, truth cannot be tolerated. And the third thing, the refuting of reality. January, just another tourist visit. Now, does that all line up with what I talk about as far as destabilization, demoralization, crisis, and also normalization? I'll go ahead and mute. Dwight, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a playbook of sorts. Um, the way you laid it out is pretty good. Normalization. You're right. The refuting of facts. You did not see what you saw. I'm telling you that. You did not see that. Oh, not the usher. Yeah. So I refrain from using fake news. I don't even say it anymore because what you're doing is you basically promoting something that this guy came up with. So I refuse to promote that. I don't say stuff like that, you know, because that is used by a certain core of folks to normalize deceit and sources of news that are true. So um, yeah, so I like the way you really kind of laid out the Russia and Fatty brought in Russia. Um, that's a big thing, man. I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to the influence that Russia has over this country. It goes out into a bigger picture of nationalism amongst a different race, but that's for a different discussion. But yeah, Russia definitely plays an influence. It started when he basically bent the knee to the guy. So it's very interesting to see all this play out, like in slow motion in front of us, and the way the politicians are actually acting upon this play. It's almost Shakespearean. It feels like a movie, man, that we're in.
Copy that, Fatty. You want to something started? I'll go ahead and
Yes,
mute.
yes, yes. I am, and I have headphones now, and I think it's the audio settings, John. The remember the first time when the settings was kind of repeated. I think that's what is happening there, but it's fine. We're going to try and power through. So I think a lot of times we focus on things that is irrelevant and we play the opposition, uh, the opposition's game, right? And when I say that, I'm talking about, for example, Kamala Harris is not black. So uh, is that an important part of this information, or is that an important part of what people actually are trying to sell to other people? Because in the end of the day, if you are shoving identity politics towards people's throat, even if he's right or if he's wrong, it's going to feel something, like people are going to feel some type of way. People are going to make sure that they punish you either if the result is she is black or she is not black. But the reality is, and for example, you are seeing it now with like that kid, the ISO speed, and he went to China. What's funny is when he went to China, and we have like a idea that China is this poor country with no technology, no buildings, no nothing, and now he's walking around, everything is clean, electric cars banging, like he goes to beautiful places and all that. This shows how much the media controls the information that we get. And if they can do that with a country with 1 billion people, imagine what they can do with all around the world. Imagine what we can do with the information that we get from Russia and Ukraine, what you get from Israel and Gaza, what you get from what happens in Yemen. Like, we are always going to have a filtered, um, we are always going to have a filter type of information when we get the final result. And to be honest, when you ask me, remember, John, when you ask me where do you get your information and all that, I don't even trust the information I get. I take it as face value. I'll trust and verify. But it will not be a fact if it's not mathematics. You see what I'm saying? It will not be a fact if it's not something tangible that we can touch. It will not be a fact if you tell me, hey, these are the tariffs, and we can actually do the math and we can actually look at the numbers and see ourselves. If it's just information, I'll take it all with a grain of salt because, respectfully, both sides are playing the same game. The side that is now is just more egregious with it. It's just more bold in your face. I will do it, and if you don't like it, fake news. You are wrong. So it is what it is. But let me know. I'll actually would like to know. Uh, like, how do you stop it in real time? You see what I'm saying? Because by the time you get the information, the real information, probably the news cycle is so fast that you already just it's irrelevant already when you do it correction. So how do you stop it in real time?
The only way to stop that in real time is making sure you have enough people who are actually checking and, for the most part, we'll say fact check. That's the only way that you catch in real time. But even then, you have to make sure that you verify which particular source you can trust. So I've done a few videos. I link it in the description after this video that shows people how they can go about doing fact checking from actual international fact checking networks, approved sites. Because there's groups of critical factcheck.org, Reuters, Media, also ad fund, all sides, ground news. So basically, you got those sources that I've done videos on how you can actually go about source information. If need be, if I don't do it here, show, but since I know we're pressed for time for a couple of you guys, what I'll do is again, I'll drop the link in the description to the video, gives the display of it. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So what I wanted to do first, I didn't, but I'll just give a quick story real fast right now about the lie and the truth. So the lie and the truth go into a diner for lunch. So as lie gets there first, he sees come in behind him, and truth is wearing some brand new clothes, new shirt, tie, jacket. He's looking clean. So lie thinks that I've got to find a way to get the clothes off. I can put them on so I can walk around with some sharp deals, and I like to look dressed up, aka a well dressed lie. So after finishing eating, sit around for a second, have conversations about how truth always catching lie in a lie. Then lie says that fishing pond down the road and swim out to that platform 20 yards out. I'll bet you $20 this instead of $10 that I can beat you. Likes taking the lie's money because he knows lie is probably lying to him right now. So at that point in time, they walk out to the diner, head down to the pond. Once they get there, they trip down to the skivvies, and Truth said, on the count of three, we jump in, we swim out to the platform, we come back. One, two, three. Truth jumps in the water. Lie stands, watches him, turns around, heads back over to clothes that Truth put on the ground, puts him on, starts walking back into town. Now, Truth notices after about 10 yards that he doesn't hear Lie on his left or his right. He looks around just enough time to see Lie is rounding the corner. So, of course, he gets out of the water, no naked at all, starts heading after Lie. Meanwhile, in the town, Lie's got at least a good 2 minute head start. He's walking down the street, making sure everybody can see him, stopping and checking his appearance out in the window. He gets past the diner and someone, damn, check out the Lie. He's got on Truth's clothes, isn't he? Isn't he dressed up like the Truth? Someone said, yeah, that's a well dressed Lie we're looking at right about now. So just as Lie is taking in the compliments, you hear someone say, Lie. Everybody looks around. Here comes Truth, butt naked and in high gear, chasing after Lie, to which Lie turns around and takes off running. So then everybody says, damn, look at that. Truth is naked as hell. He's getting ready to catch up with him. Someone said, yeah, Lie can run fast, but eventually, you can't outrun the naked Truth. Hence the name of the story. Yeah, kind of corny, but understanding no matter what type of legal dress Lie gets, eventually the naked Truth does catch up. But
I like
And John, I don't agree with that at all. You know, it's funny. That's how life should be. The thing is, like, when they say, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, right? I think we are on that phase. I think we are on the good story phase. If the reality is boring and somebody is telling something that is a lie but is exciting, people are going to run after that, because that's what we are accustomed to, is
the naked
entertainment over
truth
facts.
and well
Yes,
dressed lie.
Again, goes back to what I was saying, normalization.
the naked truth. If you put a nice dress on a lie, ooh wee, look at the tight dress over there. Look at
Yeah.
All right, so leading into it, so we get down to it, where I believe that we got the disinformation coming from starts from after the Civil War. So let's take a look and let's say we look at the Reconstruction period. So we know after the Civil War was over with, the Reconstruction period is what was focused on making sure that you can integrate the formerly enslaved people back into, let us say, into the Southern society. So the people who were responsible for that mainly were known as the Radical Republicans. They were a faction that were inside of, the Republican Party. So the whole purpose of the Radical Republicans was to ensure that slavery was eradicated and the slave people would be emancipated. So that is the first step when you emancipation that started prior to Reconstruction, but folks that worked on Abraham Lincoln get him focused on that. No, Abraham Lincoln not looking at freeing the slaves, but that ended up working in tandem with the other initiatives that he was planning for the presidency. But again, we'll look at it from the standpoint of after Lincoln was assassinated. Again, we're looking at the Reconstruction. We'll start there. We'll start in 1865. So at this point in time now, you have Andrew Johnson, who was president. Now, what people seem to realize, and take a side street, that when we look at the Republican Democratic Party as they stand today, they are not the same parties because of the ideology switching that a lot of people will disagree with. But I'll make sure when we get to a point, I'm going to bring up the information, help identify. But as of right now, understand that Democrats were the hardcore slave owning bigots and racists. That's just pretty much what it is. And the Republican Party stood for uh, helping and looking at the issues of slavery and working slaves to, again, as you see, the come the construction era, they were working, doing whatever they could to ensure that enslaved former people could be integrated into society. So I'll stop it right there. Dwight, do you have anything to add to that, or things that maybe I did not mention that
Yeah. Andrew Johnson, as soon as he got put into office, began to kind of pull back some of the legislation that was put together for Reconstruction. So a sort of righting the wrongs, if you will. So Immediately. When I say immediately, I'm talking about as soon as he touched the office, he began to roll back forms of Reconstruction. And like I was saying earlier in this discussion, he was aided by the North as well. Um, there was a there was a definite recognition that enslaved labor was important to the producing families in America. Remember, at that time, America was a 13 colonies. It wasn't a very big country as we see it now with 50 states. So, along with that being such a small state of a number of states, you had ruling families. It was almost like England in terms of kings and queens. We didn't call it kings and queens, but you had ruling families. Those families definitely made a decision that um, cotton, textiles, tobacco, all of those agricultural crops were very important to America. So it was important. And immediately, when I say immediately, I'm talking about immediately those things began to start to happen. So uh, very good layout of it. But I want the folks to really realize that um, as soon as he was put in office, things began to happen. A lot of riots too, a lot of rebellions, a lot of riots, a lot of things. If you look back in history, it's not a good time uh, for the enslaved folks that were coming out of slavery.
All right, Fatty, you have anything you want to add to that?
Absolutely not. I have nothing to add on this one.
All right, folks, let me get the. And if folks can see at home in the background, um, guys, see this. During this time frame that you heard White just go through. So the Reconstruction era lasted 18 till roughly 1877. One thing that I want to point out is that during this time frame, had three different presidents who were in charge of this. Andrew Johnson was the first who ran on the fine ticket with Abraham Lincoln. Of course, when he was assassinated, Johnson, again the Democrat, as as Dwight was saying, was a sympathizer with the Democrats, or as we know, became the Southern Democrat. Based on this, Johnson more or less was sympathizing with the South, again the Southern Democrats, and looked at taking the 10%. At least that's what Lincoln was looking at as far as assessing any type of accountability to the South. Now, of course, the radical Republicans were not happy about it, but in the end, there was a pocket vote that Lincoln was able to utilize to at least veto any action for the time being. But after his death, as White said, you had Johnson, who more or less followed the guideline that Lincoln had put in place. One of the things here, one of the things here, keep in mind, is that it was to see the former slaves walking around in public with them, their wives, and their. This was definitely an issue that stayed with them because of the fact of seeing blacks who were free had the same rights supposed they did. That is something that the Southerners did not want. So the next president who came along was S. Grant. Ulysses S. Grant was looked at as not being an effective president. Reason being, during the course of time while blacks are now free and they're able to move about in the South as if they were like anyone else. You've got the Ku Klux Klan who is now terrorizing these. Now, before we talk about the Ku Klux Klan, we got to remember now that after after Reconstruction started, they had what was known as the Reconstruction Amendments, but all the amendments based off of the 1866 Civil Rights Act. Now, throwing that out there, how many folks were aware of the 1860 Civil Rights Act? Put a couple of notes aside here because that's a lot of stuff to keep up inside your head here. Uh, Basically, the Civil Rights Act of 1866, it declared all persons born in the United citizens, granted them equal rights to own property, also to make contracts, and provided federal protection regardless of or previous servitude. Now, again, as I've said before, the parties that as being right now opposite. So again, the Democrats were the pieces of shizzle, as Dwight likes pieces of. All right, they again were hardcore slave owners. Republicans were for rights of blacks. As I said, or in the Reconstruction period, you also had the Reconstruction Amendment, being the 14th Amendment and the 15th. So taking a second here, over in the chat here, I see here we're going back to Carl Anderson. He says, "Hey, if you slave life, for a slave life outside of plantations was confusing, so some remained and worked the land for food, shelter. Institutions didn't have any place to go, ended up going back to work for their current master. Something had to be done in order that there was an earning, right? So you did have that. Those who did not go back to work took it upon themselves. Like, still going to try and seek out my own way here because again, man,
Is it wrong or deplorable to go back to what you know, all the only thing you know, and kind of now at least you get paid for it? Like, what's your opinion about that? Like the slaves that went back and worked and got a wage for it. Like, do you think this deplorable or this reprehensible? I guess.
if you did not have any of supporting yourself, what's the thing that we always say? Do what you got to do, right? As two things can be right at the same. As much as I want to say, man, that's got to be deplorable, but at the other time, you got to think these were majority of the slaves who were not taught how to read or write, only knew they were doing prior to war, which was sharecropping.
Hmm.
So if sharecropping is all I know, then sharecropping is what I'm going to do. If working the field of the land is all I know, then of course, working the land is what they're going to do. As a result, if it had to go back to that, not that anyone would want to, you'd have to go ahead and do what works for you and what's going to put food on the table.
Yeah, I think a big misconception, or maybe not a misconception, and I don't and paying to work the land. So to your point, you do what you have to do. And it's not deplorable, Fatty, to answer your question. These folks just did what they had to do to survive. Survival was the key element of this whole thing. Uh, Remember, or I'll say this: realize that there was a recognition that the indigenous folks of this land, we call them Indians. I don't know why we call them that, by the way. They were indigenous folks to this land. They were wiped out. There was a recognition amongst people, the enslaved folks, that if you did not play, you could be like the indigenous folks who were wiped out. So yeah, you did what you had to do to survive. And I'm sure that was the thought behind it. Survive.
sir, because we know that if there was no compliance, now it was nothing for hanging, aiming, you know, sexual assault of family members, prove dominance. These are things that were resulted to in order to keep everybody, that's what to keep everybody in line. Also, interested where some of the information speaking of comes from. So I'm going to put that up for the screen. Fatty, you invite to see information as well.
Can you repeat yourself? Like you froze a little bit.
Yeah, I'm. What I'm doing,
Oh,
bringing up sites that I reference a lot of my information from. Britannica
oh, Britannica.
is a good source.
Yes.
Yep, Britannica is generally where I pull the majority of my information from, mainly because they're considered to be pro science, meaning that there's peer review done, as well as also empirical testing done by the actual experts. I'd like to make that if there's any information of any find that verify it, because fact, as I've heard say before. So if they don't choose sides, we need to make sure that they're chosen right. So basically,
I just wanted to
as I
say
said
something
here,
real. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
go ahead, Fatty. No, I'm good.
No. It's because it's yeah. I'm freezing a little bit. Let me refresh real quick. I'll be right back.
Right, you still there? Can you still hear? Right.
Yes, I'm still here.
I'm back.
All right. Good here, Fatty. What were you going to say?
I'm back. I'm back.
So, as I was saying, there were three amendments that came with that. Hey, John. No, Carl, I don't have boost. Actually, just in case, um, so if people don't know, he'll just take a quick side street. I'm using OBS Studio. The OBS Studio is not like StreamYard, whereas when you connect, everything you do on the server, that's a client server connection. So if you're using OBS Studio peer to peer. So as a result, anything you do, audio, video, streaming, like what we're doing right now, when you're showing any type of digital, that all play against what you're doing on your computer. So you have enough uh, CPU cycles to accommodate it. So I've turned off a good amount of junk on here, such as Microsoft Chat, Microsoft Teams. So if there's a little bit of lag here and there, there's probably a few programs such as what is that antivirus? McAfee that may be running in the background that chews up a little bit. So I'm going to be sparing about what I bring up because I'm noticing that things get choppy. That's because of the fact I'm using additional resources. Dwight, this goes to that joke. You say, hey, man. So,
That's not a joke, bro. That
Gator.
was a
Hey, hey, hey,
real
hey, hey,
statement.
hey, Dwight, don't say that out loud because I told you the same thing.
I've been telling him that for the longest, man. He's a hard-headed joke,
Hey,
man.
this man is trying to fly
Yeah,
Air Force
yeah.
jet. We,
I've
we
been telling him the same
we
thing,
can
man. He's
ride
a
the
hard-headed
bus,
joke.
John. You can ride the bus. It's fine. We get to the jet in a few.
Hey, man,
Gator.
I don't want to pay $45 a month for something I can do myself, man.
Goddamn right.
Hey, and then come to my show and drop $200. See, I'm talking about
Exactly.
this man is just
Yeah,
this
he's
man.
very generous, man.
This man is just everybody else but himself. That's
He drops big money on shows, man, and won't even drop money on his own damn show.
And I'm frugal. I'm the poor.
Come on, man.
I'm the poor Warren Buffett.
Come on,
Oh,
bro.
yeah. The is the same
Come
guy.
on,
And
man.
Warren Buffett is actually the same thing. He says, "Oh, I drive the same car and do the same house," and then he has like a collection of watches. This is like $7 million. That we good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I get. Yeah.
Now we're doing watch hate. We're doing
No,
watch
I'm
hate.
just
You
saying,
see,
man.
you see,
We've been on you, man. We've been on you about
this
getting
is what I'm
streamed
talking
up,
about.
bro.
Right?
But but
We've been on
but
you, bro.
$45 on StreamYard is too much. Hey,
Yeah,
hey,
he didn't even tell you about his $500 cologne set.
oh shit. Yeah,
Yeah,
yo.
so yeah.
See,
But I
that's where you're wrong.
digress. I
It was
digress.
330. See,
Oh
you were
my
off.
god. But
I
StreamYard,
digress.
but $45 is too much. I got you, John.
All right,
Yeah.
Priority.
reconsider. Right, so the shame will make.
Yeah.
I can't shame you, man. I was just giving you the hard, honest truth, man.
Bring
I've
back
been trying
shaming.
to tell
Shaming
you,
works.
man.
Shaming works.
make
Bring back shame.
make shaming great again.
Yes, 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 yes.
So, move my fellow haters. So, as we said, the Reconstruction Amendments, we have the 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, and the 15th Amendment. So, basically, what you had here is that the 13th Amendment, it abolished slavery. The 14th Amendment addressed racial equality and ensured civil rights for the formerly enslaved people. And the 15th Amendment guaranteed the right to vote regardless of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. So, getting back to what we're talking about, during the course of Reconstruction, all this was granted as of 18. But even before the amendments were put into place, you had the Ku Klux Klan again, who were terrorizing the former slaves. Now, fact, if anyone wants, here's what I'm going to do because my CPU likes are acting up a little bit. But if you go to your chat, or go to Google, go to whatever you use in the browser, if you type in Ku Klux Klan and founding, what that's going to do, list of information that's going to tell you pretty much that the Ku Klux Klan was founded by Confederates. They were not founded by the Democratic Party. Now, here's the thing, though, because the majority of Democrats were racist, and the Democratic Party was opposed of racist and slaveholders, you did have people who were in the Ku Klux Klan who might have been a part of the government, but that does not mean that the Ku Klux Klan was a military of the Democratic Party, which way they're not. They were not at all a military wing. They were simply two parties who had the same ideals and shares who worked together to ensure disenfranchisement of the formerly enslaved people. Now, this is one of the things that was hard to get a hold of. Again, you did not get a lot of support from Ulysses Grant because of that. But at this point in time, I want to realize that we had enslaved people who were getting education, were actually a part of government, who were even in legislation helping to pass bills. Do this. All right. So
But
even though, uh, say something, Fatty.
no, I was just saying it's kind of interesting that um, they want the Democratic Party to be the party of slavery, but they all forget about this, right? The Confederates that created the KKK, like where exactly were the people being lynched and being chased and all that? It's it's kind of interesting that it happened on the last show. I don't remember who said it, but somebody said, yeah, the Democrats were the party of slavery. Nobody knows about like the shift. Nobody knows about that. It's kind of ridiculous. And for whatever reason, I don't understand how can people that been on this planet for more than 20 years still believe in that and look at it as face value. Like if they want it to be true so bad that no matter the amount of information you give them, they're always going to go back to that talking point.
Again, as I said, and we're going to cover all that. We're going to nail it in this moment. She said, beat you to it, Nino. We're going to nail that down right about now here in a moment here. But you are right, Fat. A lot of folks will always look at the narrative of where things are right now with the parties as opposed to where they were. So I'll say this. Yes, back before 1965, the Democrats were the party of racism, segregation. So I want everyone to keep that in mind when everyone talks about the housing crisis where the black man was not allowed to live in the same house. Right? Everyone keep that in mind. It was a Democratic state at that. It was a Democratic administration. So everyone, hey, hello again, Doris. Hey, Zyrax is possible. Hey, how you doing? Jason, welcome back. So you had Democratic policy. The Democratic administration was charged when all this housing issues were coming to bear in the 1960s. So keep that in mind because this weighs heavily in what Fatty was talking about and what White also said and where we're going in direction. So again, the Ku Klux Klan is strictly a group made up of former Confederate soldiers. That's literally what it was. However, if anyone goes out and does a search on that on the open internet, you will find maybe one or two sources who try and say, "Oh yeah, they were the Democratic wing." Excuse me, the Ku Klux Klan was the military wing of the Democratic Party. No, that is false sourcing. But again, if you need to find out who actually is responsible for checking facts on the internet, type in International Fact Checking Network. And it will give you an outline of organizations who actually go out and do the sort of facts. So, as Fatty was asking about earlier, how do you stop something in real time? How do you do anything with facts? Well, the only thing you make sure that everybody knows how to look for it. And that's something that we're missing right now because we have a lot of folks who do not take the time to look at facts. As Fatty was saying, you just believe anything told to you, take it at face value. Dwight, do you want to add something to that before we move on, man?
Yeah, to emphasize your point about Democrats, just have the folks look up Dixiecrats. The Dixiecrats were the real um, staunch opponents of of that Democratic Party. They were the ones who were really vocal, the MAGAs, if you will, of today. That's what the Dixiecrats were back in those days, and they were so staunch in their beliefs that they are the ones who led the actual leaving up from the Democratic Party to the now Republican Party. So it kind of goes with your switch from Democrat to Republican. So, and you're right, during those days, uh, Republicans, I guess the Republican Party in the 1950s were the ones who, well, before the Dixiecrats came over, they were the ones who were out talking about, hey, civil rights is for everybody, et cetera, et cetera. So if anybody really wants to know the real history of the Democrats and the Republicans, all they have to do is kind of do a background search on Dixiecrats. That'll give you a lot of information about how the parties were formulated, how they stood back in those days. And this is very interesting. You're right. The switcheroo of telling a story and now saying, okay, well, these same Democrats are the just go back and do your research, man, before you get out here and make a fool of yourself.
Copy that. So, as Dwight was saying, that is what we're going to be coming up on. But I appreciate the lead also because again, a lot of that has to do with where the belief is now. Going back to what we're talking about right now, people are actually saying that same Democratic Party that we're discussing right about now, doing Reconstruction, doing also the period of where the Ku Klux Klan were terrorizing blacks, are the exact same party, which is not true at all. But we're going to cover that, and White is already versed on as well as I am. So that information is shared in the city. Fatty, anything you want to drop in on this before we go ahead?
Go ahead.
Pat, did you want to add anything in here, or do you want me to go ahead and keep moving?
No, I said go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I heard him. He definitely said, "Man, I don't want no part of that."
If,
Now,
if, if I don't have meaningful information, I don't need to talk.
so for anybody who is not normally rolling with Fatty and myself, or who doesn't know White and myself, uh, believe it or not, now even Fatty's over in Portugal, Fatty is first and keeps up to date with what's going on here in America as well. So don't let him fool. It's not too often that there may be something that he may not know if he's keeping up with current events or what. But just keep this in mind. All he's doing is soaking this up. So we get back to some more shows down in the future. Don't be surprised if Fatty spring this on you. All right. So, so going forward, now if we look at the period of time where again you had the marauding, chasing blacks down, going into their houses, pulling them out, uh, lynching, again the maiming, and also the sexual assaulting of family members in front of the head of the house to maintain control. This was all going on, even though they had been deployed in the former Confederacy to keep things under control. They could not handle all of it as they expected to. Now, the biggest problem came when they had the election in 1876. Now, this is going to be the presidency after Ulysses S. So now we're talking Rutherford B. Hayes, and I can't remember the first name of the individual he was going against the presidency. Last name was Tilden, and Tilden was the loser in this particular case. So he was the Republican, or excuse me, he was the Democrat. Now the issue here with Rutherford B. Hayes is they, being the Southern Democrats, says, look, here's what we do because both candidates had declared victory. So the problem here is that you can't have two sides declaring victory. But on a side note, that sound familiar to anyone where both sides declared victory, but one truly. So again, it's not the first time for many things. So as I said before, if anyone wants to verify what I'm saying, by all means, look it up. So what you can do, get Reconstruction Compromise. I believe that's how Britannica had phrased it, Reconstruction Era Compromise. Or you can also look for the Wormley Conference, WORMLESY Conference. So basically, these are two references from either Wikipedia, actually from Wikipedia and Britannica, but they both are able to cross-reference each other. So basically, Reconstruction Area Compromise or the Wormsley Conference was basically inside of the Wormsley Hotel. You had the Democrats and you had the Republicans strike a deal. The Democrats once again said that, hey, you know, we won't mind Rutherford, not Rutherford, um, Henry Hayes, but we won't mind the Republican who won being president if you guys make sure that you take the Union troops out of the South. So that was the Democrats said we fine if we let the Republican Party win the presidency. We're okay with that. But the deal here is that we want you to remove troops from the South. Now, again, think of all what we discussed. We talked about the Civil Rights Act 1860. We talked about the 13th, 14th, the 15th Amendment. All this was put into place to ensure that formerly enslaved people were integrated into Southern life and have the same opportunities. All this was gone within a year from the South because you still had a lot of Southern Democrats who wanted antebellum South to whereas blacks were either working or they were dead. So essentially, what happened is that the white supremacists were able to take back control of the South as soon as the Union troops. That meant all the strides and achievements blacks moving forward with education, being in local government, being in Senate, being in Congress, actually being a part of the legislation. All that was wiped out and minimized Now, one thing that I'll leave this with: has anyone here heard of Wilmington, North Carolina, and the story around Wilmington, North Carolina?
I heard
So
about
now,
the area. I know somebody there. I'm not going to say names.
all right. So long story short, this is where we're going to keep on moving. Already know that there was loss, the Confederacy lost, but we're starting to get now into how the Confederacy built up their ability to still influence history. So, Fatty, what I think I may do, man, I may have another show that deals specifically with Wilmington, North Carolina. In Wilmington, North Carolina, you had the overthrow of government that was a mixture of black and white governing together, store owners, teachers, educators, school itself integrated. You also had an integrated government that was overthrown by white supremacists. Literally, with coup d'etat. And anybody who was shot or killed was given a statement: you either leave or you die. So the government place right now in Wilmington, China, is the outcome of that overthrow of the integrated or interracial integrated government of Wilmington, North Carolina. So if you take a time to look that up, you'll see what I'm mentioning right here. Actually, the truth. There's a lot of issues that you don't see about if you don't go past basic high school and if you don't go past higher education. Now, keep in mind there's something else that you see a lot of where it's asked, is it worth going? Now, again, think about the narrative. Who is it that it's not worth college? Because a person who's not been educated will listen to anything that's told to them. And again, Fatty's credit, he made mention of that as well. Dwight, anything you drop in before we keep pushing?
No, what I will say, I guess I will say something. Um, you said you're gonna have another show on it. I would like to be welcomed back on that show when you do the Wilmington one. That's a good show to kind of give everybody an idea of a few things. Like you said, if you're of the idea that basic education is going to sustain you as you go forward in your life, then you're subject to miss stories like Wilmington, North Carolina, and other stories. And this says a little bit about yourself as well. I'm a firm believer in self education, but I'm also a firm believer in formal education. It has sustained me in my life. I'm 56 years old, and I'm a product of both formal and self education. It's very important um, that you have at least within yourself the self drive to learn continuously, consistently, as long as you got breath in you. I'll jump off my soapbox and I'll say this, John. Nice meeting you, Fatty. I gotta go. I don't have a lot of time, bro. I get up at 3:30 in the morning to do what I do, man. So, um,
Nice
but
to
yeah, I
meet you.
wanted to
Nice
jump
to meet
in.
you, Dwight. Thank
Nice
you very
meeting you
much.
as well, Fatty, and look forward to another time, another place. Good show, brothers.
Yes,
All
sir.
right, thanks for jumping in, Dwight.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir,
you, Dwight.
man.
See you later.
Take care, fellas.
So, so John, let me ask you a question. When people get this information, what should they make of it, right? Because a lot of people like giving information to people is essential, so they can have like a baseline of what they do and what they think in life. But like, do you have any prescription of when people when they get with information, do you want them to go and to move in a certain direction, or you just leaving them to them? And if they go to the dark side, if they do go to the light, is for you is indifferent.
Well, you've seen how we mix it up sometimes if I'm in the chat with him. The first thing that I do if someone contradicting information, and I know that it is the facts are it's written. The first thing I can only do is say, where do you get your information from?
Mm.
That's the first thing you've got to ask the question: where do you get? So if you're talking to someone who gets their news from a combination of Breitbart, Fox, OAN, Newsmax, Red State, Epoch Times, uh, Daily City, you already starting off in the wrong direction. Because I've done a show where I look at information of where people get it from through three different news. I think I went back and forth with Jake about where we talked about three particular sites. One in particular called Ground News that does an assessment and lets you know if it's center, left, or lean right, and extreme right. So the best site is media bias. So when I hear information that I know is categorically false, but can't get through to anybody else, all I can do is point them to where they can get the information that she'll put them on the right track and then share that. Doesn't necessarily mean it because when people make up their minds, well, look, this is just what I believe, I've seen, then what can you do? We know we can't save everybody.
So what if I told you I got my information from either CNN, I saw it on Twitter, but it's actually good information, right? Like, would there be any type of uh, like, would you take it as face value, or would you say, no, I'm not going to even listen to whatever you have to say because I don't trust those media sources? Like, what would be your approach to that?
I would look at who's got a track record more so the other, providing actual factual news. Hence why if I heard something CNN versus say CNN versus Fox News, I'd be
Mhm.
more apt to CNN. If I heard something from CNN versus MSNBC or something, I'm more apt to go to any of the fact checking agencies that I verify my information with and verify that between the two. Now, I do know that information is going to be factual, but the question now comes down to even though you can for them of being more in the ballpark. However, both sides will embellish a little, whereas they'll use words that will I don't want to say dog whistle, not really a dog whistle. Excuse me, dog whistle. We talk about we know there's certain words that are said that energizes the particular side that you belong to. So
Yes.
you have to. Go ahead, Fatty.
No. Yes. My thing is like uh, you can you can take the bias out, like, especially if you go to places where they have reporters, is like opinion pieces and all that. Like, you can take the bias out of the person that is writing the article. Some are going to try, some are going to do it as close as possible, but there's always going to be bias there because reality is objective, but what how we see reality is completely different. And two people can be looking at the same news, and we see this all the time, is you are looking at the same news, but one side is very adamant that this is what it means. Of, I don't know, step back, you have any type of refrain. You muted.
Uh, no, I am not. I don't say that I have any doubt overall for the moment. I have doubt on. I know again, like we were talking about facts with Britannica, the Reconstruction period, looking at the amendments, things like
Mhm.
that are fact. When I know when I'm listening to information like that, I have no doubt where information is going to side with. But
Mm.
what we generally have to think of is that when we have people delivering, you have C-SPAN, for example. C-SPAN is one of those places that sits firmly in the, notice that they don't have any pundits who are on the left or right giving an interpretation of the news that's made.
Yes.
C-SPAN gives the news as it's made. A man fell down, all right, in news, a man fell down. Whereas if you look at left or right, man fell down. Okay, just then a man just fell down. We're not sure what caused him to fall, but it was believed while he was at the polling station. See, that's where news starts going left to right, or should I say, starts getting splintered.
Mm. But doesn't even the editor, even if I'm not giving my opinion, if I'm the editor, you see what I'm saying? Can I just go ahead and put my spin on it? Because even if I'm not talking about, you see what I'm saying? I Is that any way you think that these people, especially if they funded, because this is usually what I do. I try to figure out who is funding these, right? For example, we have Charlie Kirk, the Kirkland dude that is funded by a millionaire. You a billionaire. You have the Ben Shapiro squad that is disbanding now. They were funded by billionaires, like the when they had Candace Owens and all these. Like the the fact that you can look at the person that's funding them. If you, for example, see Soros, right? If you see Elon Musk now just throwing piles of money into politics to regain power, do you think that the so I don't know how to say the word, legitimizes the you know the word, uh
Delegitimizes.
yes, do you think that like the place where people are getting their funding kind of makes them suspect when it comes to the information that they put out?
Yes, it does. You have to think about people highly or a combination of poorly educated and formally subjugated, meaning that no matter what you do to them, you're not going to get through. It's like
Hmm.
you have to think about folks who are financially and, let's say, educationally disadvantaged. Also, look at folks who are that's what sociopathically inclined. These are who are susceptible to the kind of messaging that comes from disinformation. They're able to be drawn in based on that. Not to say that you don't have folks who know better when information is false, but generally speaking, these are the driving the wagon, so to speak. So what you getting back to what you're saying is that information is information objective if it's brand new information being heard for the first time, and then you're asking someone to give you their take on it. But there's information that is solid, written into the ground, or even facts that are not even discussion again. As we said earlier, Kamala Harris is not black. Come on now. We know that she is. But people will allow information to guide them away from that. We talked about refuting shared values, grabbing by the pussy. 40, 50 years ago, you couldn't have said in government. Let's also think about it, just to skip ahead real fast. Remember when Nixon uh, impeached, you had both Republicans and Democrats who were in lockstep said we will have this done and happen inside of this institution of democracy.
Hmm.
That was probably the last time. That is the type of government that we used to, whereas now it's more tribalistic.
So you think they was not tribalistic back then? Because the thing is, I don't think they're tribalistic at all right now. I think they work for the same people. They get the same donors. No matter what happens, they're still going to work for big pharma. APEC and Israel is still going to get their money. Like I only think that this is becoming like making more polarizing towards the regular people. But when it comes to the big people, I think the billionaires agree with each other. The millionaires agree with each other, and the people with both parties kind of look at it as a little game where they take turns every 4 years just to maintain the status quo, because the people that are actually trying to make them work for the American people just don't get there. They get watered down to the point where they get there. I'll see there's less of two evils, but like I was saying on the other panel the other day, to me it sounds more like the Democrats play gameplay is at least we're not Trump, and the Republicans game plan is at least we're not the Democrats, at least we're not Joe Biden, we're not Kamala, like is the what about type of conversation. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What aboutism?
Yeah, yeah, the whataboutism. People are voting on people not because they agree with them, but because they disagree with the other side. And it kind of become of this game of hot potato, because you might say what you don't agree with, but then when it comes to point for you to actually tell people what you agree with or what you want to do, both parties, in my opinion, are immoral. They not even immoral, they are inept. You see what I'm saying? So it becomes like a confusing game, in my opinion. I might be wrong, but that's what I see.
All right, enough. Again, what you what you're seeing is based on the interpretation of how you view. No one can say what is wrong about it, but it becomes more thing or past the thing of left and right. Not about left and right. It is right and wrong. So again, based upon laws, talk about segregation. Segregation was something that was supposedly wiped out back in Rights Act 57, at least, where uh, I take it back. No, not the 57 civil rights, but I'm thinking of the executive order that Lyndon B. Johnson had signed, more or less stating that segregation was not going to be allowed in politics or in federal contract. But the thing here is that that was the first thing that Trump removed when he came into office. The question you have to ask, not left, right, but is right or wrong. Is it wrong to discriminate against a person based on their color of their skin and
Mhm.
where they're allowed to be in the world? Is it right or is it wrong? Now, again, I'm not asking you to give an answer based upon me expecting you to think the way that I think. I'm just asking you, what do you feel based upon the guidelines of society that are in place? That's what you.
But and that's what I'm talking about, right and wrong. Like, do you believe in cultural relativism? That you're muted. Do you believe in is a concept called cultural relativism, meaning it's not that one society is right, another is wrong. If you go to China, it's going to be something. Is going to India, is going to be something. Like, do you believe in that concept, right?
Uh, I
You understand it, at least. Not if you
I'll put it
believe,
this
if
way.
you
Yeah,
agree.
I
Yes.
understand the concept, but I don't agree with actions such as in Korea, the
Mhm.
dog is a delicacy. But
But that's was literally what I was going to say.
yeah, I mean, I know because it is something that's been around for a while. It depends upon where you are. That's the only time that depends comes in it because it depends upon your culture. When you have some that will marry children or marry young off of the age of 12 or 13, but that is their culture.
Mhm.
However, in America, oh, no. No, all you're doing is to catch that show, what was it, to catch a predator? All you're
Mhm.
doing is giving them bad press.
Hmm.
So the culture is going to be a deciding factor of that. So when you heard the statement, I know also chat as well. When in Rome, right? Well, you know
Yes.
what? This ain't Rome. This is 1500s over in Harlem. You better not do that. Somebody would say. So you need to look at your situation and that would be my answer.
Yes. I didn't want you to put you on the spot. It's just that
Oh, that's
I
okay. That's an easy answer.
yeah, yeah. I just have I have I believe that time and the genetic lottery, like the place where you end up being in this world, like being born in this world, is going to strongly mold your beliefs. And what is for me is an hamburger. If I was born in India, probably I would have a repulse for people that actually eat cows. Or if I was born in the Middle East, I would repulse for somebody that eats bacon, right? So when these people did what
Exactly.
they yes, so when these people did what they did during these times, do you think they had a clear grasp or what was right and what was wrong, or you think they were just not victims, but there was just people that didn't know better. Let's go with that, right? Like, do you? Because these the people of today that do that game, I can clearly see that they do it on purpose and they believe in those things, right? They know it, right? They know it. They still push it because either with the dog whistles or just straight up, they actually know what they're doing. They just feel like they should either misinform people or try to convince people that they are the party of love and the other party is the party of hate. But for those people back then, do you really think that they knew better and they just didn't do know better, or do you think that was it was a on purpose? We know this is malicious, but we're going to do it because that's what benefits the most.
Back then, again, if we're talking about they knew exactly, because you have to remember property.
Mhm.
They were workers. They were an expense. Concept of Declaration of Independence of all men, not a consideration. Slaves. Question is asked: did people know? Yes, they did. Because of that, going back to where we about in the Reconstruction period, Wilmington, North Carolina was rushed and overthrown. Yeah, what they were doing, but they didn't care. Because remember, blacks considered to be property, and for those religious folks, human.
That makes sense. I can see I can see exactly what you're saying.
Now, so going past that, we're looking at now, whereas whole Reconstruction era has come to supremacy, now taking back control of southern states. What's the next step now? So roughly around 1893, 1894, you have the creation of the Daughters of the Confederacy. So just a second, Zyrex, you say first now? Just a minute. Let me go ahead and Fatty in the chat is saying that my audio is dropping out, so just readjusting
It's
input.
fine.
Went back where you and I had made the change before. Matter of fact, let me check this.
I'll mute myself.
I'm gonna go ahead and put it at 100. Right. So see where this goes. All right. So folks, if you're hearing anything off, let me know inside the chat. So as I was saying, Patty, with the Daughters of the Confederacy, they were children of the Confederate soldiers, some of generals, some of actual infantry. But this nation was put together to whereas they primarily romanticized loss of the Southern effort. Basically, they claimed that the Civil War was not fought for, let's say, over slavery, but states' rights.
Is it? But is that a misconception?
uh, only I'm getting to that part only where you are in the United States. It is a fact that the Civil War fought over slavery. As a fact, over and out, done. However, South was looked at as they'll call the lost cause narrative, saying that, oh no, states' rights that they're infringing upon. Uh, Slaves love being slaves. Their masters were benevolent. They enjoyed living on the plantation. It was a great life to be.
Hmm.
So again, that's where it depends upon where you are. So this goes into my next statement. In asking the question of is that right or is that wrong? Okay, what were the hard and facts? We know that the South was the Civil War and the South was betting on slavery. They succeeded from because slavery expects to be ceased and not want to stop. So remember we talked about the ideological subversion of a society, and we talked first about how 40 years ago today, Russians said we're going to hopefully subvert American society, moralization, excuse me, station, um, stabilization, crisis, normalization. People don't seem to realize that the doors of the Confederacy started the entire issue version almost 100 plus years ago. Reason being, it was the textbook that they were able to have distributed south and some places in the north that told the narrative what I just said. Oh, slaves enjoyed being slaves. Their masters were benevolent. Slavery was never the issue. Economic thing known as lost cause.
Do you do you think that, for example, people that defend like the statues of the old Confederates and all that, do you think that's history and heritage, or do you think there is a legitimate reason for actually pull them down? Do Because they're like, the reason is, oh, they are traitors. Like, why are we celebrating the losers and da 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 da? Like, what's your stance on that?
It is not about hair. They're trying to make it hair. Try it back then, and they're still trying to right now. Like I said, there is right, there is wrong. At the subjugation of individual against their will. Simple. Ask anybody here, panel. Ask anybody on the street. Do you want to restrict your movement based upon your color? Say no. You cannot do. This. And if you do this, beat you, chop a limb off. I'm going to assault a family member in front of you. Anyone want that?
Absolutely not.
Right. So that's where I lie when it comes down to anyone. Health was wonderful. That is a lie. No human in their life being subjugated to someone, force, then violence. That hence lost cause narrative was perpetrated and is still being perpetrated right now because of the fact that the textbooks were distributed in the half of the United States. As I said before, also um, in areas of the North. Anybody in the chat, simply type in the lost cause narrative plus Confederacy. Danica, media, or do a random, give you the same. Speaking of,
So so you are clearly against, for example, the statues being up there. Like, you're clearly against it, or do you have like you'd have more a neutral position?
oh no, the statue should not have been there. What the statues were doing were augmenting the lost cause narrative. Again, it was never about states' rights. Now, anyone who says states' rights are people who grew up in areas where those textbooks distributed, um, textbooks publishers that were affiliated with the Daughters of the Confederacy. Now, if you want any information on, type in the Daughters of the Confederacy under Britannica, and actually go to the site of the Daughters of the Confederacy. Go to the official page, and you different narration of the same conflict and the outcome.
Do you have the same view about the Confederate flag, for example? Do you think it should be flown? Do you have the like?
The Confederate flag again
Mm.
was against the emancipation of slaves. That's what it stood for. But however, again, speak to someone from the southern states who wears that, and this is again the law cause narration that we're. This is a symbol of our southern pride. This is the blood of our. There's always disingenuous or narrative opposed to support that.
Mm.
No, the rebel flag has always been biased about racism, about segregation, and against any of the blacks that were freed after the Civil War. But if you were born in a Southern stronghold, grew up South where the Daughters of the Confederacy agency able to influence book publishers, put information out Southern narrative, typing it up inside of books, you will get people who go to their grave defending the South.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I just wanted to make sure, because I don't have a strong opinion about that. When I was young, it was taught to me that it was kind of a symbol, like a racist symbol. And then I grew up and people introduced me on a different way. My point was always like, why are the losers, like, why are the losers celebrated? Because there's no place, on the planetary where the losers are celebrated. It's kind of, if you
Oh,
lost the war, I'm sorry. Like, there's no funny funny flags in Germany. There's no funny flags in Japan. There's no everybody that's wearing the flag is kind of a traitor to the nation, because respectfully they are lost, right? So it's kind of interesting that in the United States there's still a prevalence about people using that, and when they say it's about heritage, I don't understand what type of heritage is talking about. Because like one day we go from everybody's American and we should all don't disrespect our flag and da 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 da. And then as soon as it's convenient, it guys kind of goes to separatism. Everybody wants to have their own thing, even if it is not conducive to the main thing that is being pushed.
That is just that. It's subjective. It depends on see theirs or elections. But again, facts, facts, not be indisputable. But grew up in a place where the facts or the reality of where you are saying is inconsistent with the facts that everybody else in the world knows. But
Yes, but that's exactly the point. But I don't think a lot of people, I don't think is malicious. A lot of people, I think they just don't know better. You see what
and
I'm
that's
saying?
all I'm saying. And then
Yes.
I'm agreeing. We're both saying something different, but we're both saying the exact same. Wouldn't know better if you haven't been shown any different. For a second, let's take another minute about this and we'll get back on topics. So,
Yes,
perfect
sir.
example. When I was in training back in 1990, yes, folks, shut up. So, when I was about 20 back in 1990 going to basic training. And I remember guys came in and he said, what you guys need to understand, majority of you, all of you, coming from different walks. Therefore, you want to see most likely never seen them on television, been around them, different culture next to you. First time who has never lived around you. Now, I grew up in an environment. The time I opened my eyes and I left the house in 1990. I was born in 1970. Growing up in the 70s, I was around for when the Civil Rights Bill was just passed and you were still Ku Klux Klan burning crosses and cards, or blacks walking home, getting pulled off to the side and being beaten up, sometimes shot right there or drugged, some lynched. These are things that were happening when I was 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 years old. I was 12. These things were still happening. Sitting in training, listening to the instructor teach, he said, I got a perfect example of something. I had a girl we kicked out about a few days ago who came from Mississippi, and she's black people now. So, of course, you military got training in all different colors. Female, she was assigned to a female flight that had a female TI. So the female guy said to her, hey, you need to get over here. The effect that she said was, what? Ain't no little, I'll say ninja instead. Ain't no little ninja woman do ninja. What the hell do you think you are talking to me? Of course, they had to go ahead and take her down to called the snake pit. Snake pit is where you had the guys sit during the course of lunch, breakfast, lunch, dinner. They were able to look at all the trainees. So the guy had got the GI that was teaching my class at the time. And he brought her up in front of the snake pit and he said, go ahead and tell them what you said. Yeah, ain't no little ninja tell me what. Ninjas don't get that type of respect where I'm from. I don't even know why she's even here. I need to tell that little ninja girl that she watch her mouth and she's say that girl did not stay in the military. That type of behavior is still in some areas of the United States where there are black people in that town. That's the way they would prefer to have it. The black showed up, be a thing getting them ran out of that area or they make it so bearable that they leave immediately. Yeah, that type of situation does still occur in America. So there's truth in the saying, and any that verify this. If you ain't from, don't come there. The one in the chat, if you ever heard that statement. Fatty, have you been from there? Don't come there.
You're talking about. I heard about the what they call sundown towns, whatever the thing is. Like those cities where you should just, if you're a black person, you should just drive by. You shouldn't stop. Anyway, what is it called? Sundown, something like that. Like
Um, the name escapes me right, but you're on the right frame of mind. There are places where you're traveling. Hey, let's not stop here. We need to keep going.
yeah, I heard about that, but I'm not familiar with the particular cities. But I think I saw documentaries about, say, some particular cities on the United States where people just should be vroom. You should be like, if you are any type of minority, you should just move along.
Romp, romp. Keep on going. We'll get gas else.
Yes.
All right.
Mm.
So that being said, now the last thing we'll say about the Reconstruction period and about the Daughters of Confederacy. Again, they were, or what we see nowadays, people who like to try and say that again was not slavery, it was Southern rights. But as you said, also, so how is it that the writing the history, and that was the main problem right there because the South created so solid. That's about today's Republicans, which was the same thing about last or the Democrats of old, which Republicans right. Democrats of all made sure they stayed united for the same purpose. That purpose was distorted, but the thing is, code. That is the main find that because when you have another side that's about, oh well, I should have this right. Oh, I want to do this. Why do I have to? Hey, remember we had that panel. Hey, sometimes we don't need to sit here and have this question about why. I just do.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
so think about that in this instance. We're talking about the Republicans, where they lost the narrative, lost control. Now you've got the Southern Democrats now managed to get their ideology into some place where it will live forever. It is now in textbook about the perspective of benevolent South, the enjoying slaves out in the field singing their blazing saddles. Good old ninja work, just out there singing and praising and being happy to be slaves and have such good masters that fed them, clothed them, and gave them a skill. This is the nonsense taught per the. So the last thing I'll say here is you had the Georgia State University. There was somebody by the name Chara Both. See if I can find that and also add that into a description. She made a statement similar to what I'm talking about right now and similar to what Daddy about how the loop is able to rewrite history, revisionist history. Said even in 2020, there were issues where there were books that were distributed in the classroom that spoke of the cause narrative. Type in Civil War, you will hear give give a statement is more or less right from the playbook. It was about economics of it, about the states' rights as well. Slavery was not an issue, as others would have you believe. Have a universe that put time into teaching. That's the last thing I'll say about that. We'll move on. Question back.
Uh, I don't want to be off topic because, like, I'm curious about other things that are not about this topic per se, but I'll kind of connect it, but are not, because like I always was curious about like the, what do they call, critical race theory, something like that. I never understood. Like, I don't know if you have a strong opinion about that or not, but I don't want to derail from the show.
I'll just put it. It was never taught to the extent or to the degree in grade school as it was a college level type course. But again, that's what we talk about misinformation. You have mislead, characterize, misinform. Those are three of the primary things that CRT narrative came around. Remember, 2018, It was the migrant caravan. 2020 COVID. 2020 CRT. And in 2024, it was Haitians eating dogs. There's always going to be a type of narrative that we utilize. That's all that is. CRT was just one of those narratives that was utilized. Misinformation, mischaracterization.
Okay, thank you very much. I just checking because player one said the audio was bad. I'm going to try to mute myself in between. I think they can hear me well, but your audio, I think he goes in and out, especially if I'm unmuted. Can you guys put the one in the chat if the audio is good? I'm going to mute myself, John. Just say something and see if their audio is good.
Um, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 9, 8, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Let's see if they can give us a little bit of feedback. I think they have like a 30-second delay, so it would be good to kind of see this out of the window. Let's see.
So by the time they start listening again, we've probably been silent for they catch up.
Yeah, I think it's slow and breaking. Yes, your audio is still breaking. So
Okay, just a second.
we need to kind of reconfigure because player one sent me a video and it was kind of choppy. So Mm, 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 mm,
Hi.
mm, 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 mm.
All right. So he's saying sound is fading in and out.
Yes. I think that StreamYard subscription is coming in. It's coming in and
It's coming in. It may be something I have to look at here.
don't say maybe, John.
Or we'll say probably definitely. Probably
say,
definitely.
say baby, John.
Let me do this. So property. Let me see if I can change the output for my microphone.
Yes, sir. And I hope you guys are doing good, friends. I hope you guys have we're having a great week. We're just chilling here with John. John is trying. John is trying to get his watch hours up and try to educate us in the same time. So please share, support, and all that. One view at a time. We're going to get there. One view at a time.
All right. So put a 2 in the chat if you could, folks. Still sounds kind of choppy. I'll just change the microphone input.
Yes.
Fatty, what's it sound like to you?
No, to me it's perfect. But remember when we were talking about the video ninja, and I told you, hey man, I don't like the video thing. I use the StreamYard. I give a dead link. I give a dead link to the people. They can join in, and then I just have to record the StreamYard from there. And we could use it today too. Actually, it just takes a little bit of building, but you even the free version. Oh yeah, even the free version of StreamYard, you don't have to pay if you're not going to have panels with more than 6 people. You can use it, and it's for free. It's just less text into the computer, and you can do more things. You can still present everything and all that. So
Yeah. Peer to peer. Like I said, this is peer to peer. I need to move peer to peer, most likely.
yeah,
So Zarek said it sounds a little bit better, but if you don't hear a lot of feedback, we'll just go with that as we were. So I can only imagine what it may have sounded like once you take the stream. But we'll go ahead and check out nonetheless. Stream is salvageable. We can go with it. Or worst case, not if we have to. If we want that, we can run it back again. Worst case scenario, just do it on, like I said, on a StreamYard platform. But
Yes.
going forward, so Zyrex, I said that it sounds a lot better. So, folks, if it's sounding a lot better, let me know. Just put a one in the chat if it's sounding a little bit better here. So otherwise, we'll go ahead and continue because we're getting ready to round the corner for the. So again, so rewrite of history done by the South, and we're looking at Confederacy uh, had influence over with having publishers publish the cause. Ooh, all right, that's better. Thanks, Wisdom.
So the input is better. So now it working.
Yep. So yeah,
Yeah,
this is
and wisdom.
This is the mic
Is,
in hand. Say, hey, get this on up.
so there's the one that you're using now.
No, this is the one I moved away from. I'm just using the microphone off my little webcam right now.
Okay, and that's way better. And the free version has a monthly time limit. He only has a time limit if you click on the button. You don't have to click on the button. People talk on the back all the time offline, so you just can use it offline.
Oh, cool.
It's fine. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
Yep, no problem.
You muted?
All right. No, I'm back up now. I was just testing something on where my muting.
Still muted.
I'm using. Oops. Yeah, how about now?
You're good.
Okay, yeah. Just testing the muting. See if I was muting from the software soundboard. Stuff from the soundboard right now. All right. So the part of the ideology. All right. So here's where we're going to go. I said right now, folks, is bring it up. What I want to do now is just put it on you folks. If you want to know, I'll give you the information. And I may go ahead and try and bring it up over here and make sure you feel my CPU cycle. Since someone keeps asking if I have Boost Mobile. No, I have Boost OBS. So anyway, right now, if we're starting to look at where the ideologies change, the question I've been looking at for months now that I put myself back into it is that there's always a significant point in time that we can see a switch in conversation. So where would that be? Now, believe it or not, the actual switch of ideologies first started around 1927, in between 1927 and 19. And this was during the presidency of Herbert Hoover. Now, is anyone familiar with the Great Mississippi Flood of 1927? So, if not, this is when that entire region was pretty much all but wiped out, where you had levees and dams breaking the amount of rainwater, therefore it cracked and flooded the valley. Now, during this time frame, as I said, the president was Herbert Hoover. Now, Herbert Hoover was someone who was not afraid to live amongst uh, people of different races or religions. He had lived in China for a little while, to include also he lived in Russia, and he was looked at as being a humanitarian. And during the course of him being a humanitarian, he had helped Russians after World War One who were starving or having problems being fed. He himself was over there aiding in humanitarian relief. So as a result, that's how he was commerce. He was as a humanitarian. So during this point in time, when he was working in the Secretary of Commerce under, I think the president at the time was Calvin Coolidge, he was asked by a lot of the governors in states where they had the most flooding if he would assist. This was not his job. FEMA, as we know, it was not complete place at that point in time. But you still had people who responded to issues when there were national emergencies. So, because of the fact that he'd been active in the humanitarian realm, he was looked at to assist. There you go, honey. Talking about the time where they had Hoover, roughly around the Great Depression.
What is a overview?
So these were the areas where, think of shantytown, all the poor people ended up living because of the economy was, well, no jobs unavailable, people living around each other in almost slum-like locations. Again, as Hunting Wisdom is saying, and they gave it that name because Hoover was the president. Felt that he did not do anything effective enough to make sure that occur. Now, for all of he was as a humanitarian, he was good and recognized that. But his decision making later on past that is what hurt him. So we'll go into that right now. So, for example, now Hoover was a Republican. Now, remember when people started asking when did the Republican to the Democrats start? It started mainly with Herbert Hoover. Reason being, now think about this. We talk about the Hooverville. Talk about this little. Now imagine um, what we called it as a tent city, where you've got a plethora of folks living in an encampment who have had to come here in order to just survive after being flooded out. So you've got blacks and whites living in these encampments. Now, of course, you need to get some type of labor to assist building the levees back. At some point in time, guess who was made to officially and only be people to build the levee back, to include being held at gunpoint, being forced to build the levees? Who do you think that was? Black people. Yeah, so you now have in these encampments where you had the landowners, where the government were paying people for lack of a better word, what's the subsidies? They were paying people for their losses. The money that was supposed to go to the black share not being given to them. Their money was from the white landowner. And on top of that, not only are the black farmers not getting any money for their loss, as the white farmers are, you now have the white farmers and other people of the town holding them up, like I said, at gunpoint and forcing them to do manual labor and broken levees. Now, this information would have been bad for Hoover because he was now looking at trying to win the election for president. So again, this is before his presidency. He was president or elected in 1929 until 1933. And we're talking about the period of 1927, 1920. So what he does is local black populace. You have the local chapter NAACP. I forget the individual's first name, but his last name was Martin. He was the person who was asked to and have conversation with Herbert Hoover because at the time, um, Booker T. Washington now pretty much in charge of the Institute. So therefore, it left the person in charge, which was Martin, to have the discussion with Hoover. Look, the media is not going to take nicely if you find out what you're doing to black people. You are forcing them to build levees. This is not their job. This is not what they came here to do. So unless you stop this and give them what they're getting, I'm going to go to the media. Who says, no, no, don't do that. Here, let's do it. You just keep this quiet, keep it out of the media. Once I am elected president, I will do any and everything I can to help black people in the area. All right, so Patty, do you think that is believable hearing what he was doing or hearing what was transpiring? Do you believe?
No, is believable. Because we kind of like this was when exactly? Like what was the century that this was happening?
This is the early 20th, 1928.
Yeah, yes, it's not very removed from today's day and age. The thing is now, and the thing is, when you don't have cameras, like cameras are the ultimate equalizer, right? And I think, like for example, in the 70s and like for example, what happened with the Rodney King riots and all that, like the history as a weak way of showing itself to the future if you don't have actually footage of what happened. Like that's why we kind of put so much emphasis on the Second World War. It's probably the first time where war was actually in people's faces, right? So I would actually take that as the best case scenario, to be honest. Because when people don't have cameras, when people don't have nobody reporting, when people don't have the fear of this coming back to bite them, I think that's when people actually show their worst behavior. So, and your audio, I think your audio is good. You are just blurry, like your computer is kind of fighting the quality of your camera just died down tremendously. So I think they're just seeing like a blurb. No, it's not about the camera. It's the quality. It's the quality. It's like doing
Okay.
the. So I don't know
Okay.
what's going on with there.
All right. So yeah, man. So that's what we're dealing with right about now. So he made a false promise because after he became president, he did nothing to aid those blacks who kept the news of his treatment of blacks in the encampment out of the news. So this is where you had the first defection of blacks from the Republican Party, who they had always supported because of being freed by Lincoln. This is where you saw black support start moving towards the Democratic Party. So to bring that audio back. All right, Wisdom, let me know here if your audio is better now. I went ahead and brought it back up all the way. So yeah, Fatty. So that was a lie that was told, obviously. But now, after that lie was told, this is where the defection started. Now remember, we're talking about where the ideologies. At the same time, you also have Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Now is coming in after her, and the talk of civil rights is now being made Democratic Party. And the reason this is happening because now you've had blacks who were, for the first time, wait a minute, been Republicans the entire time. Republicans have always looked out for it. Why is this changing? Because as you said, and everyone, White said the same thing, and I believe Chad have said, people still have the same outcome, still have the same desires, even though there's some whites who wanted to see blacks given rights. There were some inside the party who did not. So Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his party caught on to that and decided to go with it. Now, also keep in mind, Roosevelt was the first president who wanted to talk about making sure that we call them stimulus checks nowadays. But back then, nobody wanted to do that. FDR wanted to take care of people. He also wanted to see better outcomes, well, regardless of, again, race at the time. But he was not completely sold on it. But it was one of those things saying, I see where the direction is going here. But again, he was probably one of the presidents who talked about let's take care of the populace. Whereas Hoover was saying, no, let's not do that. Everyone just needs to go get an education, like pull your bootstrap, go to school, get an education, and you should do fine in life. Again, spoken like someone who's never had to face the level of adversity that people of color had. So going forward now, I'll go ahead,
It's
Fatty.
it's the it's the pull yourself by the bootstraps mentality when you have a bunch of boots with bootstraps just laying around and everybody's on flip flops. Like it's, it's kind of easy to say that if you have flip flops, how are you going to pull yourself by the bootstraps if you don't have even boots? People underestimate the fact that they're born on the right family, on the right side, with the right color, with the right like luck and who you came like when you came out of a woman. That I think that takes a lot of what is going to happen to you for the rest of your life, and I think people underestimate that tremendously. But it is what it is. Might be
And
wrong.
no, that is an accurate assessment. So going through this, we now have a portion of the Democratic Party that is now talking about, hey, wait a minute, what's all this conversation about blacks being liberated, about having emancipation and being equal? What is all this talk we're talking about? Now recall that Dwight had made the statement about the Dixiecrats, because in
Mm.
1908, the Dixiecrats were a faction of the Southern Democrats. Now remember, the Southern Democrats are now your segregationists. We are still talking about the South, the Democrats that we know, slave owners, against slaves having rights, against Reconstruction era, where blacks were given the 13th and 15th Amendment, where they had protections from the government. These are the same the same Democrats in 1948 who, at the Democratic National Convention, decided, well, no, we're not supporting this. We're going to form our own party, again called the Dixiecrats. And the Dixiecrats were a party that lasted from July of 1948 until November of 1948. It was short lived. But because of the fact they were against civil rights, that is the whole purpose of the Tom Thurman was the person that president of the Democrats, and it failed. Of course, we know Clinton became president, so now we're looking at the desegregation of the military, and then Eisenhower continued afterward presidency. So we're now looking at the shift of the Republican Party losing black support. So now let's go ahead and hit the marker. This is home stretch. So now we get into the era where we are talking about 1963, 1964. We're talking about the Civil Rights Act that was passed in 64 after the death of Kennedy. So Lyndon B. Johnson, who was the vice president to Kennedy, was the person who ended up enforcing and passing the, the Civil Rights Act. Now, this was a bridge too far for all of the, again, Dixie Democrats or the Southern Democrats. As a result, Strom Thurmond defected from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party because he said the Democratic Party had lost the ability to listen to the meaning, listen to the segregationists. And when Strom Thurmond left, you started seeing a mass exodus of Democrats who were still for segregation, who believed in that, who went over to the Republican Party. And those Republicans who wanted to support civil rights came over to the Democratic Party. And in 1965, that was pretty much the nail in the coffin. You got almost 80 to 90% empty of both sides. And this is something
So
that,
do you
again,
think that?
go ahead, Fatty. Go ahead.
No, just do you think that's what you mentioned that like they stop listening to black people, right? If I'm not mistaken. Like,
Uh,
do you
yes.
hmm? Do you think that's what is
Yes.
happening right now?
Oh, I would say that it never stopped. The thing here is that, as I said before, you have to look at who was it who was not listening. Now, remember,
Mhm.
the Republican Party, to a degree, up until Herbert Hoover, were avid benefactors of having black support. But when Herbert Hoover told that lie to Martin and said, "Hey, if you keep the misdeeds of us mistreating blacks out of the media, we'll make sure that if I win the presidency in 1929, I'll do everything." Told that lie. He was one of the folks who, by not listening to blacks. So when you get into the 60s, now we're talking about the Civil Rights Act being passed, the issue more so that the Democratic Party felt that people had stopped listening to racists. So it's not a thing of not listening to blacks. It was the issue of the segregation had stopped, or at least the Democratic Party as a whole, what it was becoming, had stopped listening of the segregationists. Think about this: when Barry Goldwater ran, here's another thing that when Barry Goldwater ran for opposite Johnson, he himself was opposed to civil rights. Now, again, if you look at the narrative, folks pull two things out of that. Some will say that he was opposed to what the Democrats were offering because it seemed like it was expanding the power of the federal government. But at the same time, it was also ensuring that blacks were given equal protection. Once again, that you saw in the Civil Rights Act of eight. There was one also of 875, but that one was wiped away by 1883. Nonetheless, the problem was that there was still blacks looking for full citizenship, treated as equal. That regardless of how you shake it, the Republican Party was no longer supporting blacks expected. But what got Martin Luther Jr. involved is that when he heard, and his words were,
Barry Goldwater spoke out against the Civil Rights Act. He felt compelled and had no choice but to tell blacks to vote for.
Do you do you do you think that carries over to today? Because you talk about the like the 60s and how, like, do you think that today, like the either both of the parties, do you think any of them actually listen to black people desires, goals, or make it at least a priority?
The Republican Party is not concerned about anyone who is black, Asian at all. So let's just go ahead and put it right there. Let's go ahead and lock it out that way, because if they were, you would not see the policies that are being exacted right now. The Democrats, as I said, you had the racist, segregationist Republican Party. And the Republicans who wanted to support civil rights went to the Democratic Party. Again, folks, if you look up this, look at Republican Democrat ideology switch, or look big switch, and you'll be able to substantiate what I'm saying. Democrats, although being more towards the liberal party that supports black causes or black initiatives, they have lost sight while supporting black. They instead started looking at supporting more of a class, and that could be black, white, or immigrant. It doesn't matter. They started looking at a certain class that they were showing more attention to. Let's say more towards the upper middle, but forgetting about the middle or even the upper, lower, and lower. So even though they were still looking to support them, they started looking at a particular echelon and started forgetting about the others below. But now that's not just the issue about that, because also I think you and I talked about the red pill ideology. So that had a lot to do with voting strategies. But let's also remember this, Fred. Remember when we talked about in the 1960s, it was briefly the housing situation, where they talked about the black man was being forced out of the house.
Yes.
Now think about this: before 1965, who was the Democratic Party mainly composed of? The segregationists, the former slave owners. That was the majority of the party still at the time. Even though the shift was occurring, there was
What was the time? What was the time?
the early 61 up to up to 65, from 60, let's say
Mm.
65, where the early 60s, where they were looking at the projects. It's supposed to be something of helping with housing for blacks or lower income folks. And it turns into this whole thing now, is that when you go to certain places, they talk about the ghettos, that when you look at establishments, okay, yeah, the projects, these were supposed to be supposedly the best opportunity for blacks to find housing communities, but it's become slum housing in a majority of areas. But again, the people who were in charge of those particular processes, those agencies, were the main ones we're talking about, who were made up the majority of the party up until 1965. So nowadays, when you hear people talk about, look what they did when it came to housing for blacks. Look at rights and freedoms. People seem to forget again. After 1965, it was complete ideology swap. Matter of fact, uh, try this. See if I can bring this up to where you. Do you have any additional thoughts on that?
No, absolutely not. I have more questions than statement.
All right.
I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted to know what your thoughts, especially on the current, because we talk about a lot about what we don't like. I would actually like to understand what your uh, where do you stand with the Democratic Party of current.
Understood. So there we go. That up. So that should be. Hey, thanks, Zyrex. Please coming in here. Fatty and I are going to be rolling this down in a little bit. We'll try and do the live here. Maybe I'll do it on StreamYard next time. But again, thanks for anyone who showed up in here. We're going to be getting out of here in a about 10 or 15 minutes best. All right, so Fatty, let me just make sure you have this. All right, Fatty, can you see the screen also? All right, so now dating to what I was talking about. So we pretty much covered everything that I was discussing as far as construction period, where it talks about the end of construction, the Solid South, vote for presidential candidates for the next 40 years. And then, of course, we talked about the Great Depression. We talked about Herbert Hoover. We talked about, here we go, we talked about Delano Roosevelt, where he says he campaigned on a promise of government intervention, financial assistance, and concern for the welfare of people. So this is the difference that helped, because remember, during the same time frame, we had blacks with the Republican Party or the Democratic Party based upon being misled by Herbert Hoover. So where everything comes into place, it starts, here we go, where it says under the civil rights movement, race and equality began to return to the center of politics in the 1950s and 60s. Race did not necessarily fall into a party viewpoint at this point. Instead, it was more of a regional issue. Southern Democrats and Republicans both opposed the early civil rights movement, while Northern Democrats and Republicans began to support legislation. As the moment picked up steam, in 1964, Democratic President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act into law. In the 1964 election, Republican candidate Barry Goldwater publicly opposed the new law, arguing that it expanded the power of the federal government to a new level. It was this argument that led to a final decisive switch. Black voters who had historically been loyal to the Republican Party, as we had talked about here, because of the 18th Civil Rights Act, had already been switched to the Democratic Party. And as I was saying, Fanny, that had started during Herbert Hoover's presidency, during Herbert Hoover's time as a Commerce Secretary, then definitely his presidency, when he did not honor the statement that he made to Martin, who was the leader of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP. However, upon hearing Goldwater's argument against the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the majority of black voters left the Republican Party in favor of the Democrat. I recall this is what I was saying with Martin Luther King, and there's an article of Martin Luther King votes for the Democrat, or something that you put out into Google. It states what I've been saying, is that blacks to instead vote for the Democrats only because of Goldwater fighting against the Civil Rights Act. They saw the Democratic Party as advocates for equality and justice, while the Republicans were concerned with keeping the status quo in America. As the 60s and 70s continued, Democrats sought reform in other places. White Southern Democrats began to resent how much the Democratic Party was intervening to the rights of the people. By the 1980s, white Southern Democrats had become Republican, and the majority of the South now Republican. The Republican Party now is solidly conservative, while the Democrat Party is liberal. Oh, right about now, I would definitely say Donald Trump, based upon, again, him rejecting Executive Order 1124 Johnson put in place to outlaw segregation of federal contracts inside the government. His attempting to, actually, attempting, but his misappropriation of I as a negative was divisive, or is divisive. His attempting right now to shut down the African American exhibit inside of the Smithsonian, him wiping veterans of color away from the history of core components: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Yes, I would definitely say more. Oh yeah, more so than Reagan because where Reagan was he was I guess he was attacking I think it was exploitation, elements of affirmative action. He was he was for the most part at that point in time where the party was you still had some blacks who were supportive of the Republican Party at that point, but not as many as there were before. Matter of fact, the blacks still support the party. Many of them were part of we'll say, the Reagan conservative. But no, Reagan did not do nearly as much at that point in time. He did do damage, yeah. I will not take away from that damage, but not as much as we're seeing right now, to where it's literally rollback of executive orders that were put in place. Again, you didn't see Reagan go after EO 1126. You didn't see Reagan, although he attempted actions with Department of Education. He had made attempts, but luckily enough, you still had good folks on both sides. When I say both sides, I'm talking about Republicans, Democrats, before the animosity came in place, that still put country or party. But no, I don't think much damage as we're seeing right now. All right, so we'll go ahead and land the plane right there because I know this has been tumultuous chat here, to say the least, right? So we've seen it go back and forth. Just I didn't want we can, but I appreciate getting in here, Fatty, for taking the time to be a part of it.
And I appreciate you, John. Once we get on StreamYard, we will make this shit StreamYard. Thank you very much for having me, and actually for teaching me something. It's not every time I actually ask more questions than I do statements for the most part, and this part is kind of I don't know if it's a blind side, like a part where I'm not as adept, but I will try to learn every day, all day, try to get a little bit better. So once again, John, thank you very much for always trying to be fact based instead of chasing the odd story. I know we talk about it. I know you kind of understand my point of view about just letting people do what they do, but for the most part, I actually appreciate Yuri from you on these topics because I know you come in with the correct information. So I appreciate you, sir. Thank you very much for and to
No
everyone
problem, man.
came up to join the show. Okay, I appreciate y'all.
Appreciate it. All right, so folks, we'll go ahead and drop it right there. Remembering now that the poorly educated and mentally subjugated is where issues come into play that we need to fight and work against, right? So we need to always take time to ensure that if we're going to put out the right information, we ourselves need to know where that information comes from, where we need to get it. As always, rock with me and I'll make sure it's whenever you need it, okay? All right, so we'll pull the plug right here. Know what comes next. Find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what's going on over here. If you like it, let me know. Share it if you do. Subscribe. This is what you're looking for. Again, thank you to Dwight and thank you, Patty, for joining. We'll try and get this right